Hello, my name is Erin, and I'm the editorial representative and the public relations officer of the Southern Branch of the Irish Patchwork Society. In 2016, the Southern Branch of the Irish Patchwork Society's committee has decided to make education for newer patchworkers a focus, and in order to help educate those newer patchworkers, we've decided to create the series of new videos entitled Back to Basics. This should be the fourth video in the series. And this video is going to have just some fabric terminology and maybe some abbreviations as well. So newer patchworkers can kind of get to know some of the lingo that we have. So let's get started. I have a little cheat sheet over here on my sewing table, so if you will forgive me when I occasionally go over there to keep myself on track. So let's get started. The first thing that I'd like to talk about is just exactly what makes up a quilt. And there's several components of that. You have the quilt top, you have the batting or the wadding, and you have the quilt backing. And then those are usually encased with a binding strip. So let's kind of go through each of those terms now. So the first thing is the quilt top. And basically this is all where the magic happens. This is a quilt top I've had completed for a little bit. It's in my 2016 goals to get this bad boy quilted this year, so hopefully I'll have that done. Basically, a quilt top consists of a lot of pieced bits of fabric together. This one is a disappearing 4 patch, is this quilt block, and it's just multiple quilt blocks over and over and over again. The variety is in the fabric selection, so that is a quilt top, and you can see got all your seams on the back there. So the next part of your quilt sandwich is going to be your wadding or your batting. I'm used to calling it batting because I am from the United States, but over here in Ireland they like to call it wadding. So this is a type of bamboo wadding that I just recently used on our 2015 Block of the Month quilt, which I will debut as soon as it's debuted at the meeting. So this is just an example of some wadding. There's different thicknesses, and we can go over that in another video, but this is going to be the middle layer of your quilt, and it provides a good amount of insulation and heat. And then the last layer is going to be your quilt back, and this is the back that I have chosen, the quilt backing that I've chosen for the quilt top that I showed you. Typically it's made up of one piece of extra wide fabric or multiple pieces sewn together, depending on the size of your quilt. You can also have some fun with the back of your quilt as well, by including any orphan blocks you may have in that quilt back. It's kind of fun to do. I have another example of that where we can talk about the different ways you can back a quilt. There's so many videos we can do. So the next part of your quilt that you're going to want to create is the quilt binding, and this is a strip of fabric sewn to the outside edge. This one is just a plain orange one that I used for one of my boys' quilts. And this is one that's kind of fun. I cut on the bias so I could utilize the stripe sequence. I use this on my brother's Doctor Who quilt. He is a big fan of, I think it's the 4th Doctor, and his scarf. So there's that. And then just to talk about some terms that you might hear with quilt construction. The first one is piecing, and basically that's sewing together just the different pieces of fabric that you've cut for your quilt. So they can be, for example, this is the quilt that I'm currently working on. You can piece together this white triangle with this parallelogram, that's this lavender parallelogram, and basically piecing is just the action of sewing these pieces together. Chain piecing is when you take those pieces of fabric. So again, let me get this as an example. When I constructed this block, I used chain piecing. So basically what I did is for all of these blocks that are in the stack, I would first sew this, we'll say this triangle onto the lavender parallelogram here, and I just would continue on with each piece, just sewing that one white triangle on until I completed all of them, and then I sewed on the other one. And I didn't cut my thread during all of that, so you basically just feed piece through piece through piece with machine with a couple of stitches in between those pieces so you can cut them apart. Another quilt term you might hear is sashing, and basically that is a piece of fabric that is sewn between two quilt blocks. So the quilt top that I showed you there did not have any sashing, but imagine if there was, say, a white strip of fabric in between those blocks, that's considered sashing. The next thing is strip piecing, and basically that's cutting long strips of fabric, sewing those long strips of fabric together, and then subcutting those. So say you did like a purple, white, and a purple, and then you had another strip set of white, purple, white. When you subcut those, you can create a checkerboard pattern much easier than if you cut those individual squares. So it's just a quicker way to do like a checkerboard, or say an Irish chain construction quilt is strip piecing. And then basting is the step that you take once you have the quilt back, the wadding or batting, and the quilt top, and you layer the backing fabric down, you layer the wadding on top, and then you lay your quilt top on, and then you either make sure those stick together using a spray basting or a pin basting. So let's talk about some abbreviations that you may hear or see on the internet. The first one is a work in progress, and basically this lavender parallelogram butterfly one that I have been showing you, this is my current work in progress. It's what I'm now kind of focusing the most time and attention on. This is the final border in a medallion quilt that I'm working on, and so basically it's just whatever you're currently working on, you would consider a work in progress. UFO would be that quilt top that I showed you there that I haven't yet quilted. It's considered an unfinished object, so a UFO. The next one, which I think is kind of fun, and if you're a knitter or a crocheter, you may have heard this one before. It's sable, which is stash acquisition beyond life expectancy, which I think is just kind of a fun term. Those of you that have large fabric stashes or yarn stashes as well. Another term you may hear is a PhD, and you can kind of use this interchangeably, I think, with the UFO. It's a partially half done, so maybe I'd consider that disappearing four patch a partially half done, because the quilt top is constructed. I've got the quilt backing, but really all that's left is the quilting and the binding. So the next abbreviation you may hear is HST, which stands for half square triangle, and this is a type of component of block usually. And then we have WST and RST. These are wrong sides together, WST, and RST is right sides together. You may see this in some block construction depending on how you need to lay your fabrics, whether or not they need to be right or wrong sides together. So that's the end of our abbreviations and terminology, quilters terminology. If you have any terms that I missed, please send them in so I can post them to a video. The next video I think I'm going to shoot for you all is going to be fabric terminology, where I get some yardage and just go through go through bias and selvage and grain and all that stuff. So that should be the next video. So I will see you all then. Have a good day. Bye.